Before we get into the reactions of those supporting Blake and those supporting Justin, I have already posted a video to recap the lawsuit so that you have access to the information so far. So if you're already caught up, let's start with people's opinions and support for Blake Lively.
Okay, I knew about Justin Baldoni from the beginning, and here's how I knew. I read the book It Ends With Us. Okay, not my normal reading fare, but it was all over Book Talk, and I thought, let me give it a go. You know, I'm in a reading dry spell. Let me try it. Was it a good book? No. Did it have a problematic take on telling a story about domestic violence? Yeah. Did I enjoy it? 100%. It's a goofy book. Okay, but here's my point. The main character, Ryle, who Justin Baldoni plays, is described in the book as the most earth-shatteringly handsome man that anyone has ever seen. Gorgeous, transcendent handsomeness, okay? The book goes on and on about how beautiful he is. And he's a neurosurgeon, okay? That's just a hint about like what kind of book it is, okay? Anyway, when the news came out that the movie was being made, I thought, oh, let me click on that link. I'm curious who they're casting as Lily Bloom and Ryle. And then when I saw that Justin Baldoni was directing the movie and he had cast himself as the most beautiful man in the world, I knew everything I needed to know. My intuition was pinging. It said, that man, I don't believe he's an easy man to work with. So when all this stuff, earlier this year was going off about Blake Lively and how like horrible she was to work with on set, I just thought, there's more to this story. I just know that there's more to this story. Maybe that's true. Maybe she is hard to work with, but that is not the whole story. And then this morning I'm scrolling through TikTok and I see Justin Baldoni's proposal video. I just love being right. I love being right.
I think the reason why a lot of people are having a hard time coming to the fact that the smear campaign against Blake Lively was actually a smear campaign, I think people believe that because a lot of this stuff is just Blake Lively's own words, that this would have come out organically. People are hearing the word smear and thinking that they were spreading lies about her, but what they were actually doing was amplifying negative coverage to bury the 3 HR complaints that were made on set that some journalists were trying to get their hands on. And that's the reason why I believe she's suing for retaliation and not defamation, because the reason why this crisis communications firm were hired in the first place was to get ahead and discredit Blake Lively if she were to ever come out about the harassment that occurred. Now, by their own admittance, it was very easy they didn't really have to do much. That's because they were using like old interviews and some of her own words against her. Y'all don't think it's weird that they're using the fact that she was a quote-unquote mean girl to cover up the fact that he harassed people on the set? Like, that's weird.
I'm sorry, since when did adding an X to the end of your text messages mean it's okay to sexually harass you? Like, I'm trying to read this Justin Baldoni lawsuit. I mean, I'm not going to read 87 pages. It's New Year's. I'm not even like going to get dressed for this, but I just don't see how this is swaying so many people. I think the internet discourse is so used to just being able to say like, oh, she's responding, he's responding. Now it's like it's a tennis match, and that's not how these things work. Like, look at the way they tried to use that. She invited him into her trailer while she was pumping to run lines as like a gotcha. You can invite somebody in once to run lines while you're pumping and then not want them to come in anytime you're topless. I guess if you haven't pumped before or you like haven't been around people who have, you don't know, but like you can be decently covered. Like all the important bits are in use for a reason. Consent given once doesn't mean like endless consent to be around while somebody's topless. Also, if you know the New York Times, like, are they perfect? No. But are their investigative teams like thorough? Yes. You know why? Because they get sued. So if they're going to publish something accusing powerful people on something, you know they're going to have done their research on this. And finally, this is the last thing I'm going to say, because I don't want to be going like back and forth talking about every single lawsuit, because like if this is going to be worked out in the courts, like 3 different court cases as of now, then let the courts do their job. But what's really important for us to know is that abusers thrive on making things seem complicated. It's literally textbook behavior. They don't need to completely disprove you, but they do need to just sprinkle in a little things to discredit you, to make people go like, the situation seems toxic. Let's just not get involved.
The women who are supporting Justin Baldoni make me feel unsafe in this world. It's the nuclear bomb of not all men. You are so eager to believe him. It has nothing to do with her. Everything that's been done since 2017 to believe women just thrown out the window. His voice message sounds like the 199 version of a guru, and you are eating it up so willingly.
But I want to say that I think everyone should support and believe Blake Lively in this. And it doesn't have to be a stand competition. It doesn't have to do with anything about how you feel about her, because it shouldn't really be relevant. Nothing that Blake Lively has done, I feel like, could convince anyone that it's like impossible for her to be the victim of like sexual harassment, or for him to just create a toxic work environment. Y'all don't know these people. You especially don't know that man. And to see people acting like all of a sudden they've always loved Justin Baldoni and that they're ready to go to war for him is quite crazy to me. He hired the same crisis PR manager as the pirate who shall not be named. So already off the bat, that's not giving innocent. Because of all the crisis PR managers, why would you pick the one who launched one of the most misogynistic and almost violent hate campaigns against a woman online? So seeing that low-key makes me think, when that woman reposted that press thing that she did with Blake Lively from years ago, that journalist reposted that, I'm like, and knowing that that journalist is a fan of the pirate who should not be named, I'm starting to think that maybe that was a little bit more than coincidental. But that's just my tin hat tingling, okay? And it seems almost ridiculous to kind of like include in this the fact that like it doesn't matter if you dislike a woman or not. That doesn't make them less of a victim of something or unbelievable. I don't believe that someone as successful and business savvy as Blake Lively would launch a whole campaign without some substantial evidence. That just doesn't make sense. And it definitely seems a little weird for people, not just him and his team, but people in themselves, to try to find a logical reason explaining all of the behavior that is like listed in the like what was happening behind set. Like, okay, maybe he's asking about her weight because he has to lift her up in his back injury, but some of these other things, there's no way you can find a logical reason for that. Zero. Like, it is kind of weird that this man could make this movie and then like all of you guys like project all of these thoughts onto him because you find him so hot, that you therefore think that he's like this perfect man and father and husband and da-da. You don't know him. I don't know. I just heard about this man. I don't know this man. What? And I think with Blake Lively, it's, I don't want to say complicated, because it's like, the truth is that the internet does love to run a smear campaign against women, but then part of that smear campaign and reason a lot of people don't like her is because of the plantation ass wedding, and that weird ass blog she had. But it's also just like, that's not necessarily relevant to this. It's not relevant to this. That in no way makes it seem like she's a terrible person, so therefore she can't be sexually harassed, or no one can like treat her terribly. Those things have like, I don't want it to be like, oh well, you have to like Blake Lively. That's not what I'm saying. It's, you should believe Blake Lively because you should believe women, and especially in the state that we're in, we should be believing women. Like, Twitter is acting crazy.
So I've just heard the voice note from Justin Baldoni that everyone's losing their minds over, where he talks about going down in the basement at the premiere. And I've seen all the comments where people are going, yes, he's got receipts. This is it. I stand by Justin. Just to be clear, a voice note of a man moaning and saying how sad he is isn't a receipt, especially when it's been leaked by his lawyer. In these situations, some people are just so desperate to believe the man, the attractive man, that they will accept anything. A voice note that he sent. That's like me faking a robbery and sending my friend a voice note going, yeah, it was a really bad robbery. Yeah, it was terrible. Believe me, it was terrible. I'm a sociologist, so I study people for a living. Even I am baffled about how people are reacting to this case.
If you believe that Blake Lively is telling the truth, can you please do me a favour and stop putting the caveat that you don't like Blake Lively on that statement of support, because it really undermines it. If you think that Blake Lively is telling the truth, then whether or not you like her and her moral character as a person is completely irrelevant. If you believe her, then you must believe her to be a woman who's been targeted by sexism and misogyny, which is never okay in any circumstances, regardless of the character of the woman that it happens to. When any woman has been targeted in this way, by Johnny Depp's PR people, mind you, and you put these disclaimers on your statements of support, you are begging that woman's persecutors and the people on the side of her persecutors to see your support for her as somehow being more rational and balanced and informed than those of us who unapologetically say, I believe it, that guy. And when you do this, you are undermining the woman being targeted, you are undermining her most unapologetic defenders, and you are shooting yourself in the foot as a woman, because her persecutors will not spare you if they don't want to, and it doesn't matter what you say. And I understand why women do this, because when a woman is being persecuted, we are afraid that we are going to be sunk right along with her if we are seen to support her. But any one woman's ship might be harder to sink if it was part of a fleet, and we keep failing to be the fleet. We failed Amber Heard, and this might seem like an overreaction to some subjectively imperfect statements of support for Blake Lively, but this is really taking me back to women who clearly believed Amber Heard but didn't have the guts to say it, so instead they hedged by saying non-committal things about how they both seem like messed up people. And now we're finding out that some of the architects of Amber Heard's persecution were involved in this, and we are faced with the opportunity to do better this time, and I'm begging women to please grow a spine. I'm not even saying that you have to believe Blake Lively. I'm saying look at the allegations, look at the evidence, and if you do believe Blake Lively, then just say it and stop apologizing for it. But just to be really clear, I believe Blake Lively. I'm not sorry about it, and I wish her all the best with her legal case.
I read the entire Blake Lively lawsuit against Justin Baldoni and his studio, and even though I'm not a lawyer in any way, shape, or form, I felt like I had to read it because I am a creator who commented on Blake Lively while she was in sort of like the peak tumult of this PR crisis, and that is at the center of this lawsuit. So honestly, I sort of felt like I had a responsibility to read it thoroughly. I have done that, and I'm now going to give you some of my takeaways. First and foremost, it seems very clear to me that a lot of misconduct did occur on that set. And the reason why I find what was put forth in the lawsuit to be very compelling and to make a compelling case that there was a lot of misconduct and sexual harassment is because written statements about that misconduct were distributed to Justin Baldoni and his studio and his business partner many months before any of us heard about any of this. So if it was just something that we were hearing about now, you could maybe think, oh, this is Blake Lively trying to protect her reputation, trying to get back at him because she has suffered this reputational loss. But written documents were submitted several months, like back in November, I believe, of 2023, that outlined all of the terrible behavior that happened at the hands of Justin Baldoni and his business partner on set. And so to me, for it to have been outlined by lawyers, for them to have had an entire meeting around it in January of this year, for parties to have signed that document, acknowledging that that behavior would not continue into the future, that means some wild shit went down. In terms of what actually went down, you can read it, but I will say some of the things that stuck out to me were, one, Justin and his partner entering her trailer unannounced, uninvited, while she was in various states of undress. Also, Justin adding spontaneously new scenes, intimate scenes, nude scenes that were not in the script, were not in the book, and were not previously approved by Blake Lively. Also, him commenting to her and to other actors on set and to other employees and crew on set about their looks, about how sexy they looked, just things that are known to make women feel uncomfortable in the workplace. This is a very small fraction of the complaints that, again, were submitted in writing several months before any of us knew about any of this. My second takeaway is that they present a very compelling case that Justin and his team did orchestrate a real media takedown of Blake Lively. And I think you can argue the degrees to which she also orchestrated her own, reputational takedown in some ways. But it's very clear that this was something that was orchestrated by his team because they present so much evidence in the form of screenshots of text messages between him and his PR team and the PR team and the crisis management team, where they literally use the words bury her, destroy her, where they literally point to articles about other women like Hailey Bieber that talk about weaponizing feminism and Justin saying things like, this is what we need, where they literally point to articles that talk about Blake Lively getting canceled and congratulate one another like, oh, good work. Like, you really outdid yourself. I know, this is why you pay me. It's very clear that this was an orchestrated effort. And then my final takeaway, this is actually something I'm still thinking about, and I will probably make a longer video about on YouTube. Shout out to my YouTube. Subscribe if you don't mind. The role that creators like myself played in this narrative is one that I personally just want to spend more time thinking about, because I personally felt like the video that I made, and you can watch it, it's still up, was completely organic. No one paid me. No one reached out to me and said, hey, make this video about Blake Lively. I did what I typically do. There was a topic sort of trending, and I felt like I had a perspective that was interesting, so I made a video. And I felt like I was doing it completely organic. But now, after reading this lawsuit, I feel like, oh, was I an unwitting pawn in a much bigger chess game that was going on and being orchestrated by other parties? And to what extent do I have the responsibility to understand those factors that are at play? But it's really giving me pause. And again, let me just reiterate, nobody paid me. Okay. No one said, hey, say something negative about Blake Lively. And also, to be clear, if you don't want to go scroll and find the video, the point I made, I never said anything about Justin Baldoni, because the chances of me getting on the internet and defending a man I know nothing about are so slim. I have no interest in that. But the video I made did say that I speculated, was Blake pursuing this like floral girlhood, women's empowerment version of a marketing strategy because she saw it work for her bestie Taylor on Eras Tour. Because remember, Blake was a producer on this film, and she did speak about how she would never just be an actor. She would never just be someone who would put on clothes and say lines. Like, she would only take on roles where she could do more. So she did have a say. However, what I didn't know and what this lawsuit talks about was this marketing plan was agreed upon by her and everyone else. And she was contractually obligated to go forward with the marketing plan that was agreed upon, which said, let's focus on women's empowerment. Let's focus on optimism. Let's focus on hope. Let's not focus on abuse, violence, whatever. So anyway, I made a video sort of speculating on why would she go that route. I never said anything about Justin Baldoni. I never said anything trying to defend him. That's just not who I am. But again, I felt like I was making that video organically. And now I'm like, was I? Did I get got? Not trying to absolve myself of any culpability, but more just like really wondering about like this machine that I guess I now am a part of. Anyway, those are my current takeaways. I'm going to continue thinking about it, but I would also encourage you to read the entire lawsuit. Very, very illuminating.
I told you so about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. I freaking told you so. And this is one of those moments where I center myself in a pop culture event that has nothing to do with me. However, you can check it. Go back to your comments on all of these videos that were being posted over the summer. I was in there being like, Justin Baldoni did something, y'all. I can feel it in my bones. I know it. And it's not because I'm a huge Blake Lively fan. I really don't like her that much. But I could just tell something was fishy. Also, I know better than to trust a man. Ever. And he hired the same guy that Johnny Depp hired for the Amber Heard trials. Y'all really need to stop trusting men just because they're cute.
Justin Baldoni's PR is like doing the opposite for me, because what do you mean Blake Lively had you waiting in the basement at your own premiere? And you did it. Like, that's so funny. That's so girl boss. And you're telling me Ryan Reynolds berated you for questioning her weight? I don't even like these people, but it's just, they're funny. These are some funny girl boss moves.
Now that we've heard people's opinions and support for Blake Lively, Let's hear the other side, which is people's opinions, which are in support of Justin Baldoni.
Okay, the more I look into this, the more fishy it is, and it just seems a bit tone deaf. Why are we using a movie about DV to promote your hair brand? Why is the PR packet funny and fluffy instead of raising awareness and talking about the heart of this film? And why is it giving Deadpool x Wolverine x It Ends With Us? Like, I appreciate that they're supporting each other as husband and wife with their respective movies, but it just seems tone deaf given the nature of this film. I think that is why Justin Baldoni is in the backseat right now. He was the director of the film. Blake Lively was a producer. Somehow Ryan Reynolds got involved for some reason and wrote a couple scenes. I know Justin Baldoni said in an interview that he purposefully took a backseat in some of the intimate scenes so that the women could take control of that and give it the female gaze. He seemed very respectful and sensitive about this whole thing so far. I think he treated it very carefully and with a lot of consideration. So personally, I think that what happened is that he got a bit bulldozed over in the creative process. That probably created a bit of a disconnect. Blake Lively is very popular. She's very close with Colleen during this whole thing. And I think that the way that this PR is going, he wants no part in it. I don't know, that's just my opinion and speculation, but that's what I think is what's going on. And disappointingly, I do think that this is pretty tone deaf and inappropriate. I was really excited to see Justin Baldoni do a lot of PR for this. I thought that it would raise a lot of awareness, so I'm really disappointed that it's just giving the opposite of that.
Is this Justin Baldoni in the basement during the It Ends With Us premiere? Justin's attorney Brian Freeman just went on the Megyn Kelly show where he released a voice memo that he says is from Justin, where he's talking about how he was sent to the basement with his friends and family during the premiere at Blake's direction. And shout out to Bohemian Diva on TikTok, who pointed out that this video was still on Justin's page. Brian Freeman told Megyn Kelly that he plans to sue Blake Lively, quote, into oblivion. And they played this voice memo that Freeman says Justin had sent to his team about the premiere, where he said he was sent to the basement.
It could have been one of the most beautiful nights of my life, career-wise. I literally was sent to the basement with all my friends and family for over an hour. I wasn't allowed to be seen. She didn't want me anywhere near her or the rest of the cast. We start laughing because of the ridiculousness of this whole thing. And I realized, like, on a night that was supposed to be so materialistically joyful, I was in the basement with the people that I love the most, and we were all joyful and laughing. Because none of that shit matters. We're in this business because we're artists, and we believe in what we do. And I believe that will follow each of us, and that truth will prevail, and that light and love will win.
The It Ends With Us premiere was at New York City's AMC Lincoln Square Theater, and I was trying to find pictures online of the basement space to see if it looked the same as what was in Justin's video. I couldn't find it, but it does say on the site that that theater does have 3 basement theaters in the space. Freeman says he plans to release all the receipts, all the messages, all the communication, so I think this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Is TikTok a safe place to say that I don't like Blake Lively or Ryan Reynolds? There's a lot of reasons why. For example, I think that they're criminally overrated in every way. They are not as nice looking as everybody says. They do not dress as well as everybody says. They do not act as well as everybody says. And I'm not to say that they are ugly or that they can't act or they can't whatever. It's just overrated. And is that their fault? No, but I don't care. However, overarchingly, it was not about that. It was just bad vibes. This was solidified when Ryan Reynolds had that phone company that was made for basically like elderly people, anybody that were in low income, and he promised that he wasn't going to sell out, because what he was here for was to take care of the underdog. What do you do? Sold it for like $1 billion to T-Mobile. And if you look into things that he's done, he's kind of like done it before. But along with that, they just give me like white rich people that are just kind of clueless, somehow America's sweethearts that aren't really doing anything for America. But their handling of It Ends With Us, just nail in the coffin. I love Justin Baldoni. And if you've been following Justin Baldoni, you know that he has been fighting with the people in interviews everywhere, talking about domestic violence, the severity of it, the seriousness of this movie and book, even though Colleen Hoover did not deserve that. But the fact that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds made this opportunity about them, their brand, Hugh Jackman, the other movie, her hair, her outfits, while wearing Britney Spears' outfit, filthy. And I don't care what nobody says. I do not like them. I don't like them. And I'm not trying to convince anybody to not like them. I'm just wondering, am I alone?
I've been around. I got a lot of rings on this tree, all right? And having said that, I love watching this public meltdown of Blake Lively and the dethroning of Ryan Reynolds. I have seen far too many times entitled people that just think their shit don't stink and they squat it out any place they can and there's no retribution or consequence. And the roost is coming home, baby. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. But watching the public turn on this, she is the hottest, most beautiful woman I have ever found to be truly ugly. When you watch these clips of how she just talks shit about all of her co-hosts and the way that she talks down to people, and her dad paid for her to get into choir as a child, called her princess. Dude, her dad was in the movie The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Dude, we're talking monster. This chick is a monster and everybody gets to see it now.
I don't believe Blake Lively, and I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why. So during the promotion of the movie, she talked heavily about the fashion. And come to find out, she had actually taken over all of those fashion choices. Which is why she was promoting the fashion, because she had made every single one of those outfits herself. To the point where Baldoni had to literally rewrite the script in areas because she was like, no, this girl can wear couture, Gucci, when Baldoni had insisted on her being kind of like, you know, lower middle class or lower class. Which is why, again, she promoted the out of her own fashion choices. She wanted the public to agree with her and think, oh my gosh, these are so great. But when she saw that the public negatively interacted with her choices, she spun the narrative to be in her favor. Oh, I was only allowed to talk about the fashion. Blake is a snake. And that's one of the many reasons I don't believe her.
I'm not saying I don't believe Blake Lively. I'm saying I don't trust people that get married at plantations. Like, to know the history, the hate, the racism, the slavery that goes into places like that, and to choose to have your wedding there. Not a vacation, not a historical trip. We're going to have our wedding at a place where so many people suffered. I think that tells you a lot about a human being. And this Justin Baldoni guy, he could be just as bad. I don't know. All I know is I judge people by their actions. Words are fleeting, actions are forever. And her actions is her getting married at a plantation. And even through the people telling her, no, don't do that there, she still went ahead and did it and then apologized for it later. Like, oh, if I could take it back.
One thing that I keep replaying in my head about the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni situation is that Blake wholeheartedly believed that she had the entire population convinced, and she was like, yes, like, we totally got them. And then Justin just pulling the rug out from underneath her, and he's like, gotcha, bitch! And she's like, no. And you know she's just like so upset and so miserable right now, thinking that she had won everybody over, but Justin came in with the Uno reverse and he was like, no. Now it's funny because like there are theories that you know, she's like in love with him and that's why she did it. I think she was in love with him, no, but do I think that there's something to that? Absolutely, I do, because there's just no way that any normal person would react like this over something like this. Like, especially in Hollywood, you would think that they would have worked with so many different scenarios. I don't know. There's just something weird about it. I absolutely think she had a crush on him. I think she did not get what she wanted out of it. And so she just used her cards. And also, what's also really weird to me is people are always like, oh my God, like her and Ryan, they're the dream couple. What? They've always seemed like such a weird couple to me. So I think people forget that Hollywood too, like they're so different. They don't care if they have a family involved. If they start crushing on someone, they'll be willing to tear their family apart in a goddamn minute. So I think that there is something definitely to that. I do. And I think she didn't get her way and she's used to getting her way. But what I do find really interesting is that Justin wants to go to trial. He's like, yeah, absolutely not. Like, you're not going to keep doing this. And he totally like played chess chess, and he said, like, checkmate, you know? Like, he's like, no, we aren't doing all this. I just can't help but think Blake is just, like, absolutely miserable right now.
Okay, I'm just thinking of theories here because it's taken over my brain. Is it possible that Blake Lively was in love with Justin Baldoni? When I saw the movie last week, 2 weeks ago, I texted my friend Zach and I said, hand to God, their chemistry was palpable. Now, you may not agree, but as a former casting director, I can feel these things when I watch these films. And there's sometimes you just feel it and there's sometimes you don't. But when I was watching those two, they don't feel like two people that couldn't stand each other. They feel like people that like wanted to bang. My brain may just be going crazy here. Is it possible that there were feelings there? Did Ryan Reynolds, like jump on something there and was like, is my wife into this guy and now I'm gonna lose might on him? Have I just lost my mind? I'm telling you, crazier things have happened. She's giving him the X at the end of the text. You never know. Wilder things have happened.
This is my Blake Lively hot take amidst all the Justin Baldoni lawsuit stuff going on. But for those of us Gossip Girl fans, now before I get to it, there will be absolutely no Blair Waldorf, no Leighton Meester slander on this page, on this video, okay? But for OG Gossip Girl fans, those of us that have rewatched this show so many times, have you ever noticed how Serena van der Woodsen is always pretending to be the role of like righteousness? And she like hates everybody that schemes and anybody that supports Gossip Girl. And she always throws a whole temper tantrum if you scheme, acting like she's never done it. What's funny is I'm realizing now that she is literally the Walmart version of Blair and Chuck with her husband, Ryan. Has anybody paid attention to that? Now, emphasis on Walmart, because at least Blair and Chuck were iconic. Like, it's impossible not to love them. But she is literally the opposite of what her character was. I mean, she's exactly as annoying as her character. But at least her freaking character cared about not scheming. And in real life, she thinks that she's going to be as iconic as Blair? Like, baby, no.
My intuition's never wrong. It's just never wrong. And with the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni thing, what I feel like is happening, I do have pattern recognition as well. And this is how I see in a big zoomed out way, okay? Just like what happened with the CEO healthcare guy, okay? The tides are turning. Things are shifting. And this may just be myself wanting this to happen too, okay? I want the power to be with the people. I want us everyday regular people, working class Americans, working class people, anybody who's oppressed to have more of a balance, right? And this is what's happening with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni represents for me personally, and this is the theme that I am getting from what's happening. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, we all know, are like Hollywood elites. They're big time. She's best friends with Taylor Swift, for God's sakes, which I love Taylor. So this is another conflicting thing that I feel. I don't necessarily think that Blake Lively is the devil or, she may be the villain in this story. But as a person, I don't know her. I have nothing to say about that. However, I have followed Justin Baldoni for a long time, and I like him. I vibe with him. I feel like he's genuine. He's authentic. Does he have less power than Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds in fame and money and connections? Absolutely. So even though he is a male, and we do live in the patriarchal society, in the power dynamic, he is the lesser, okay? So when people say, I believe women, okay? I believe my sister down the road. I believe, what someone says their cousin did to them or their uncle or I believe them. In this situation, I can see where using that as a way to maintain your power could be a possibility, okay? I believe Justin. I think that it all come out. We're at the place in history where people have more intuition, discernment. We know, we can feel, we're connected. And I think that it's all going to come out in the wash, and we will know. So trust yourself with this. You know.
So I wanted to weigh in on the Blake Lively drama as someone that has worked with her and someone that's worked with directors in Hollywood for over 10 years. I worked at a talent agency and then a management company. And I specifically, at one time, actually worked with Blake Lively. So I want to color in what's going on here. For context, when I worked with Blake, it was one day she was doing press for Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. This was end of May, beginning of June 2005. I worked on a show that was on the Fuse channel, which was like a local competitor to MTV in New York City. After that, I went on to work in Hollywood at CAA, which is WME's competitor, and then management companies where I worked with directors. So I actually do have a lot of perspective here. In addition to, I grew up on set. I was a local Nepo baby because my parents both worked in sports TV. So I grew up going to set all the time. So when I was interning at the Fuse channel, as I said, this was 2005, end of May, beginning of June, she was doing press for Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants with 3 of the 4 girls. I don't remember who exactly was there, but it was Blake, who was actually terrible and made me cry. So as an intern, we were allowed on set, but and as someone who grew up on set, you don't speak on set. It is quiet on the set because obviously the people with the microphones need to be heard, right? So your job was to just fetch things that various people needed. That day, it was my job to hand out these little water bottles to anyone who needed them. As they were walking to set from their green room, I had to pass them in this extremely narrow hallway, literally necessitating me to go like this against a wall so they could get by. Obviously, they're the priority. They need to get to set. I don't speak to them because, again, being an intern and also just growing up in the industry, you're seen, not heard, right? When you're not talent, you just do what you have to do. Show concludes, and me and all the interns are then brought upstairs for an emergency intern meeting, and they proceed to yell at us for being unprofessional. Now, I'm very confused. I'm looking around, and I'm like, nobody was unprofessional that day, at least from what I had observed. And then they ask me to stay after the meeting. So now I'm really, now my red flags are going off, what happened? She, specifically Blake, alleged that I was unprofessional and treated her like a fan. I want to reiterate, I did not speak to her. I had no idea who she was. She hadn't done Gossip Girl yet. This was her breakout thing. Didn't even know her name. I was focused on the next show that I was supposed to help with production, which was a gaming show that we were doing, or a contest show. So I get dressed down for don't talk to talent, don't treat them like you're a fan. And I'm like, I literally, what? So I guess she went and complained that me specifically, of all the interns, treated her like a fan, and she was so uncomfortable. Okay, I'm extremely weirded out. I actually cried on the train home. I used to take the train back to Long Island. I was mortified. Again, not only did I not treat her unprofessionally, but nobody to my experience that I saw spoke to her. This was our 8th show. We knew not to talk to talent. Everybody knew that. Okay, so I wipe it off, whatever. Years go by, I wind up working in a talent agency, and this is where working with directors and experiencing harassment in my own right comes into play. Harassment requires a factor of a power imbalance, okay? So someone lower than you can't really harass you because if you're her level, you can boot them off. She could have booted him off the project if he was legitimately harassing her. Harassment also doesn't occur when your husband is a frequent visitor and presence on set. He was ghostwriting scripts, which is shocking to me as someone who worked with writers and directors. I've never heard of somebody bringing their husband in to do rewrites. That was bizarre. But when you work with directors, typically they are the top dog. He was the bottom dog. It was her with all the leverage. She was the star on this show. So when I saw her interviews playing back, I was immediately, I'd actually kind of forgotten about what had happened when I worked for Fuse or interned at Fuse. I was immediately taken back to when she flipped the narrative on me and acted as if I did all these offensive things, when I want to reiterate, I didn't speak to this girl. I did not speak to her. So this girl has a pattern of flipping the narrative, playing the victim, and then leveraging her status to actually bully and mistreat other people. So I've never heard of Justin Baldoni. I'm someone who, again, worked with Hollywood directors, never heard of this guy. This might have been his big break. And what I saw is her harassing him because, again, usually it's the director that's the bigger dog on set. So yeah, they can harass their talent if they're the much bigger name. But when you're the bigger name, you can have them kicked off set. As obvious as she got him kicked out of WME, which was her talent agency. For clarity, I worked at CAA, which is the competitor, but just as big. So she threw her weight around and was like, okay, me and Ryan want this guy booted out of the agency, which is something the bigger dog can do because they have the leverage. That's how Harvey Weinstein got away with everything, because he had the leverage and he would pick on no-name people or lesser than people because who's going to believe them over him? You have more to lose if you don't take Ryan and Blake's side. So, having worked in PR, having worked on set, having grown up on set, and having personal experience with Blake doing this to me, she's the problem. There's a reason she feuds with all her co-stars. She had a feud with Anna Kendrick. She had a feud with Leighton Meester. Leighton Meester, who I wound up meeting years later, we were in Mommy and Me classes together. Completely different vibes. Very human, very demure, very nice. Unlike Big Britches Blake. So if you don't know about Hollywood and don't know about these people, allow me to color that experience in. She was the problem.
The reactions on both sides are very strong, and people are divided on whether they should take a side and who they should support. But since this is still a developing story and there's a possibility it will go to court, only time will tell.